Well, we're here talking to the well-known Irish artist Hilary Hope. We're in her studio at Shankill Castle in County Kilkenny, and we are looking forward to hearing from her. The feeling that you get when you walk into this magnificent space is one of tremendous, unfettered generosity of spirit. The colour, the detail, and the sheer energy of it. And I wanted to ask Elizabeth a few questions about how she lives as an artist. So the first question really is, Elizabeth, I have a sense of urgency in your work. Tremendous that time is short and you work fast. And how do you feel about time? Why is time important to you?
Well, I suppose it's because I'm a woman and we have to do many things. We're multitaskers, we can do lots of things. And we can do lots of things very well, I think.
But I have a sense of speed, that everything is done so fast that you see something and you interpret it onto the canvas without filtering through any rational process. You simply deliver it. And I have that, and I wondered whether that was just due to your life generally or your childhood, or to the way that you feel art should be, that art should be immediate and existential,
yes,
rather than reviewed and filtered, if you see what I'm saying.
Yes, well, I think being a painter or an artist, for want of a better word, I dislike the word artist because it's such a general word, but I think that you have to work on two levels. On one level, as if you're going to die tonight, and the other as if you're going to go on forever. So there's a contradiction in art, which there should be. You know, you have to get it down, because by doing it quickly, you keep your vanity at bay.
Very good point.
It's to do with vanity,
exactly, yes.
Because once there's vanity in a work, it loses something.
Yes,
I think
that's so very true. I think Picasso said that his art was a diary of his life, and I think if you know who his mistresses were, you can really date his art. But when I look around these paintings, I see very much a collection of all sorts of minutiae of the life at Shankill, which nevertheless adds up to your history. So would you say that your art is also a diary of your life at Shankill?
Yes, of course it is, because you cannot get away from yourself. You know, we try to be detached, but you have to be detached at one level. By physically putting down the work, you are actually detached. But it's a highly charged emotional state, and you can't interfere with that. It's like basically being the village idiot or a drunk. You say the tactless remark, and that's what we're about. The artist is there to say the tactless remark, to open up the question of our vanitas of our life, if you like.
So really, painting is a risky process. Because it's a risky process,
yes,
because you have to eliminate yourself. That's what you're saying.
Correct.
Eliminate your vanity,
yes.
And then you have to make spaces where the viewer can also grow and find things. When I look at your work, you know, I'm exploring all the images. I'm now looking at the donkeys and the rabbits and the dogs and everything else, and I'm imagining that I could be there on this farm, and then I see skulls, and I think, what about death? And so you're quite right, you have to remove yourself in order to make a space for the viewer. That's very interesting. And when you paint people, how do you feel about that?
Well, I don't
when you paint portraits, because you've made very many portraits,
yes,
and very good portraits.
The thing about painting, it doesn't really matter to me what subject I paint. The subject matter is totally irrelevant. And you see, I paint all kinds of things. If I paint the corner of a Formica chair or something modern and hard-edged, I have to treat it of equal value to your face. Everything is of equal value, and it's the painting is the subject. The subject is the painting.
Yes, exactly.
It's the paint. The paint is the subject, and therefore you're using the objects, which is the subject, which is the person.
Well, this is
an excuse to put down paint.
Yeah, in this way, you absolutely are in agreement with Vincent van Gogh, because he felt that there was a truth in everything. And he wrote, he painted a crab or an old boot or anything at all with as much reverence. It's really reverence for the real world.
Yes.
But there's much absolute reverence.
Yes.
And as we're on Van Gogh, I think Van Gogh is probably the most truthful artist, because he believed in a Christian sense that there was value in absolutely everything in its real sense. And he didn't believe, and that's why I fought with Gauguin, that the invented, imaginative, egotistical world was the true world. So you're very much closer to Van Gogh, that every small thing that you paint has its isness, its being, and you give it its full weight. And that's probably why your work is so popular and why you've been so hugely successful. So I wanted to talk, if we could go on a little bit, about colour. The thing that strikes one, as I'm now talking to whoever's watching this, is that Elizabeth finds her being in colour, and colour has always been an expression of emotion, right?
Yes.
And there have been historically phases when colour has been deeply distrusted. For example, the ancient Greeks had a spectrum that had no colour at all. It went from black to white, from light to dark. The Romans mistrusted colour, and the Bauhaus mistrusted colour, and minimalism mistrusts colour, because colour opens up the possibility of pain and tears and emotion. After the war, Bauhaus comes in, people had had enough emotion. So when I look at you, you're not frightened of emotion, and so the colour is definitely about emotion. And how would you would you like to talk about that? Well, how is colour connected to emotion, and why is it so important to you?
Well, I think colour, a lot of people are afraid of colour.
Yes.
They genuinely think it's too sexy or something. And there is an element of that in it. And of course, people like to dress in cool clothing, cool colours.
Mm-hmm.
People think by wearing black that they're being cool, but I think colour is important. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are colours like orange and purple, which are kind of hard on your nervous system. And sometimes you have to use those to get a point across, but you're not doing it out of mischievousness.
Mm. So when you think about somebody like the late work of Mark Rothko, which is maroon and black,
yes,
you would say that would be, I love this expression, hard on your nervous system,
yes,
but would maybe also be a window into the depression that he had, the darkness, which
yes,
eventually I think led to his suicide in 1969.
I used to love Mark Rothko's work, especially in the Tate, and now I got so much of how much maroon can you put up with, you know. I could see why the Bauhaus and all of that, all those people didn't like colour. It was trying to be detached, if you like, or to be indifferent. But you can't get away from the emotional element.
I think,
like orange and purple are the two colours that are the secondary colours that are probably they frighten people. I remember in the 70s, my sister had her kitchen all orange, you know, this bright colour orange was all the go. And I hated orange after that for a long time. But if you get too much of something, you get tired of it.
But so you really, the point is that it's a question of keeping the rational and irrational in balance.
Yes.
Because the extreme rational world would take you to a colourless world, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So if you think about the Bauhaus leading on to extreme minimalism,
yes,
you eventually end up with somebody who says, I have nothing to say and I'm saying it, like John Cage's 4 3/4 minutes of silence. So you have works that are literally white canvases with nothing on them at all.
Yes.
And that, of course, doesn't connect with a living world at all. It's a kind of death. But on the other side, colour is definitely sexual, and it stirs up emotion and passion, and particularly red.
Yes.
Red is also being considered to be a very holy colour. It's a colour of sacrifice. It's also the colour of blood. And I'm looking here at these beef bones that you've painted, which you've given such a sense of majesty and monumentality to them. And you can see the blood is on the bone, but the sense of what we are, you know, that we are flesh and blood. We are what a piece of work is man.
Yes.
And I get that. And when I see that, I think about that great work by Rembrandt, The Flayed Ox, which you know about.
Painting.
And then closer to home, the suffering in the war of somebody like the Jewish artist Soutine. So
yes.
I think that when you use colour, you use it joyfully and playfully and welcomely, and as a welcome, but you also use it in quite a threatening way. And some of the paintings are quite threatening, I think, in the intensity of the colour. Can we talk a bit about because you have a slightly disparate approach. On the one hand, you will be very much in the real world with real things. On the other hand, you will be in an imaginative world where you'll be breaking up and tearing. You will be physically experiencing profound emotions. And some of these works, which, I mean, the one behind me, these two might be good examples. You know, it's hard to understand where you are, except to feel that it's a very powerful expression of some inner visionary life. So I wanted to ask you, how you feel, or why you get into this mood when you can also be in that mood.
I think if you think too much about life, you probably would go mad. I just go with the flow. I don't have any. I don't I don't plan my paintings ever. I don't build up drawings of paintings ever. Right. The drawings run aside my painting.
Are different.
I don't have any plan about any painting I do because I feel it destroys the whole thing. Painting is a medium of its own. And the words that are unattached to it can't really be successful because paint is another medium.
You're quite right. So you are a true artist, in that what happens comes literally from somewhere else, and you're not there controlling it. And
I have no control over it.
No, exactly.
Except that I like to paint as quickly as possible to prevent that vanity from getting into the picture.
Yes, that's a very important point.
And
but when I think about time, you're very existential artist. You wish to capture the moment, and you wish that to be true, and for you that is the truth of it. And you are exactly 180 degrees away from an artist like Giorgio Morandi that has a row of bottles, in dead, very, very quiet still. Colours. Now the Giorgio Morandi paintings became famous after the Second World War, when people had too much emotion, so much loss, so much weeping, so much disaster and so much crisis, so much chaos. But they wanted a dead, calm row of still bottles on a shelf.
Yes.
He became far too famous for the size of his talent, actually.
Yes.
But I think the sense of the carpe diem, the speed, it keeps your paintings fresh. Your paintings will always look as if they were just made yesterday. I think that's a kind of talent you've got. Just one other thing, if we can talk about technical thing, there's quite two kind of ways in which you either approach line or texture. Some paintings are heavily textured, and some paintings are all about line. The painting right behind us here is a painting which is very much based on a linear composition, strong diagonal linear composition. This painting is painted on a dense tapestry of textures and surface things. So I wondered whether there's any way to explain these two approaches that you seem to have.
I suppose one has to frame the shape, the colour, and you have to get rid of the line. It's like a scaffolding in a way.
It's very funny because Manet was, in painting it as a late impressionist, he gets rid of line.
Yes.
But your paintings have got a lot of strong line. I'm looking at the girl in the bikini. There is a lot of line, particularly in your portraits. I think it shows that you are open to all. You do whatever you need to do to make the painting work.
Well,
isn't that right?
It is something I can't really explain. But I suppose you could argue. When people make something like a tapestry or a knitted jumper, and you're knitting and you're making stuff like a collage, and you're just filling in time, really.
Yes.
So I don't want that to be in the painting. But sometimes you fill in stuff just because it's like kind of being a rat. You're gnawing on this bone to keep your teeth from getting too big.
Talking about bones, I don't know if it's too insensitive to mention this, but you went through a phase when you were in London painting skeletons, skeletons of monkeys and skeletons. One particular painting is the three skeletons on the yellow background, and they're monkey skeletons, that painting. That painting I found very, very revealing, because I read it as three figures at the foot of a cross. I saw the Catholic Ireland coming through, even though you may not be mainstream Catholic Irish, but I could see that. I saw the skeletons as alluding to a very close brush with death. And I saw the yellow that you used, which was originally over the whole painting. You later on actually painted it out. You remember the background was originally yellow. And that yellow I found to be a colour of chronic anxiety and strain. And you also find that very acid yellow in, let's say, Picasso's Weeping Woman, which was painted in 1937 during the Spanish Civil War. And oddly enough, going back in the history of art, you find it in late Botticelli, after his soul had been completely mangled by Savonarola. The monk told him that the beauty was bad and everything else. And he was burning his artworks on the Banfavantes. So this acid yellow is a colour of anxiety. So the colour yellow and the skeletons coming up over and over again, I wondered if there was something that was hovering over you that was giving you a cause for anxiety. Well, I wondered, now it's a bit personal, whether the emergence was care. All your work is so life-affirming, so full of daylight and reality and fun. To suddenly find these skeletons appearing a lot, I wondered if it was coming up from the anxiety of having had a very serious health scare.
Well, I had
a few years ago.
I had a tumour in 2005, a malignant tumour, and I just was brought on time really, and I got everything removed, and nothing had. I didn't need chemotherapy, so I'm just here to live another day.
So maybe you worked the anxiety out through the paintings because you haven't done it for a long time. So it's done. You don't go back there anymore.
There was